Despite only having 2 games, the LEGO Indiana Jones franchise is hard to forget. The first one is arguably the cleanest of the OG3, and the second one, all of its infamy considered, is still one of the most revolutionary LEGO games to date. It's no secret that I really enjoy talking about this franchise, so I created a LEGO Indiana Jones Iceberg to sort of consolidate all the niche trivia about the games into one place. If you somehow aren't aware, an iceberg is just a way of sorting information about a subject, with the entries at the top being common and well-known, and the entries at the bottom being more niche and mysterious. I made this image myself and tried to think of every possible thing I could throw on it, but it's very likely that I missed something major, so leave your own suggestions for entries in the comments down below, and I might make a follow-up video in the future. Let's go! This is probably the most famous of all LEGO Indiana Jones Easter eggs, as it's a requirement to get 100% within the first game. I've separated the Star Wars entries into multiple categories because a few are more subtle than others, but on the top layer we have the obvious 5 characters you need to find to unlock Han Solo. We have the Indiana Jones unlock in the complete saga, and the appearance of Indiana's dad inside of LEGO Star Wars 3, referencing the castle scene from The Last Crusade. There's also the Mos Eisley Cantina hiding inside of City of Danger. No Dial of Destiny is pretty self-explanatory, as it is now the only indie film to not have a LEGO game adaptation. With its middling box office performance, it would not be profitable at all for TT Games to make a LEGO Indiana Jones 3, including all the movies and Dial of Destiny, especially when they have access to bigger franchises such as Marvel or DC, which make them a lot more money. While I didn't think the movie was bad, the best elements of it were the subtleties of Indy's character, and that wouldn't translate well into any video game format, so maybe this lack of an adaptation is for the best. Extra Toggle, or as it's called in this game, Secret Characters, refers to an extra in the first Indiana Jones that gives you bonus characters in your free play roster depending on which level you're playing. There aren't as many options as, say, the complete saga, but we still get Santa Claus in Into the Mountains, the Shanghai Hoodlums and a dancing girl in Shanghai Showdown, and some grave robbers in the Young Indy bonus level. There's nothing too special about these characters, they just exist. Throughout the many levels in both indie games, there's statues and paintings and windows that replace what would otherwise be real religious pieces of art, like the stained glass in The Hunt for Sir Richard, for example. A lot of the time, they're just random amalgamations of color to avoid directly referencing religion, but in the game where you literally drink from the Holy Grail or steal the Ark of the Covenant, it definitely stands out as weird. Some other instances of this are the mural in the Temple of the Grail, the hieroglyphs in Well of Souls being Lego pieces, the Hebrew or Aramaic spelling of Jesus being replaced with baby symbols in the second game, and tons of other miscellaneous examples. Much like the last entry, any reference to the Nazis or their symbolism is entirely removed in both of the games. The banners are replaced with a 2-stripe pattern instead of, you know, they do an American salute, and the only way you could ever infer as to which regime they fought for without watching the movies is the fact that all the enemy soldiers have blue eyes and blonde hair. This was definitely the right way to go about it, but something you really don't notice unless you're actively looking to point it out. The second indie game has a weird obsession with making every boss fight a battle against a giant minifigure. Every single movie ends with some guy becoming huge besides Crane Train in CS1. I think it's a cool concept when done once, but it happens every single time, and it did not help with the perception of the game upon release. All of the fights are unique in the way that you solve them, sure, but not different enough to make them all stand out. All LEGO games have beautiful concept art, but no game shows it off like LEGO Indiana Jones 1. Throughout the main hub, you can find some of the game's concept art in framed paintings in the hallway, and even some early sketches in the art room. It's fun to stop and look at them, trying to figure out just which level they represent, and seeing how close the devs came to replicating that feeling. As I said before, a lot of these are absolutely gorgeous, my favorite probably being Escape the Mines. As mentioned earlier, it's unlikely we'll ever get a LEGO Indy 3. The franchise is just not as popular as it used to be, and Dial of Destiny just didn't make as big of an impact. I'd like to imagine that if we did get one, it would be more in line with the Skywalker saga than anything else, with a more free-roaming open-world environment, flying to different countries and points of interest from the movies, and solving small archaeological puzzles along the way. Archaeological puzzles along the way, that's how you say that. I don't think it will ever happen, but with the new TV show, Bethesda game, and LEGO sets, I guess there's a chance that I could be wrong. LEGO Indiana Jones 2 doesn't have the best reputation. The levels were way too short, the vehicle segments were controversial, and the boss fights were all too similar. I could go on and on. But what people don't realize, though, is just how important this game really is. Sure, it was a major departure from what we were used to, but LEGO game levels were already becoming super crowded with almost too much to do. I mean, there's 10 mini-kits, there was a red brick, there was a hostage, there was a stud meter, etc, etc. And this game made the right choice in cutting back on it. I love the idea of the red bricks being delegated to the overworld. I love the idea of them being color-coded to coincide with what extra you might get. I like how the open world had tons of extra small content, especially the bonus levels that were just scattered around to encourage exploration. And the idea of returning to a level after you've already beaten it to find a different environment was so cool. If TT Games would have found a better middle ground between the old style and the new, I think a lot of the choices we view as controversial today would be much more widely accepted. This game also introduced the short-lived level creator, a tool that as a kid I messed around with a lot. It was much more in-depth than Harry Potter's and featured some genuinely neat ideas with a super intuitive system for buttons and traps that even an idiot baby like myself could understand. This goes without mentioning quick play, build your own adventure, and so much more. There's a lot of features from this game I would love to see return. LEGO Indiana Jones is one of the more faithful adaptations of the source material. At least the first game is, but it's never one-to-one. There's plenty of moments where the game deviates from the film counterpart, the most glaring examples being the outside segment in Into the Mountains, or the entire first half of Well of Souls. I actually have a whole video comparing the games to the movies, finding every similarity and difference if that interests you. Fair warning, it's pretty in-depth and it might bore you just a little bit. Now for the second batch of Star Wars Easter eggs. We've got the golden mural of Leia, R2, and 3PO in Well of Souls, the hieroglyphs in the same level, the Darth Vader silhouette in Temple of the Grail, this lightsaber handle in LEGO Indiana Jones 2's Raiders Hub, and of course, Indiana Jones' hat in Skywalker Saga's boarding party. There's definitely some Star Wars connections that I've missed, so please let me know down below some of your favorites so I can add them to the list. The stud limit in the first LEGO games was always 4 billion, due to the 32-bit integer limit not being able to handle values much higher than that. LEGO Indiana Jones falls into the same camp, but there exists a glitch that allows you to not only instantly gain 4 billion studs from a fresh save file, but also temporarily surpass that 4 billion limit. If you have both of your players dropped in and a stud value that is higher than the artifact price but no more than double, the game will subtract the price total from both players, wrapping it all the way back around from the negatives to the 32-bit integer limit. This glitch had a pretty cool rediscovery story, which I documented in this video here. It even has its own speedrun category called Max Studs, with the world record sitting around 6 minutes by Chimkin. Okay, I know I just talked about how much I love LEGO Indiana Jones 2, but this game is very broken. I'm sure a lot of you watching are already familiar with the game-breaking bugs and glitches, so let's rapid fire through them. You can walk through walls by pausing after you respawn. You can launch your character super high in the air if you throw them against certain objects. If a player dies from being thrown, they become a walking hurt box, even damaging black sword enemies without the proper weapons. You can grab objects from super far away by targeting a closer object at the last second. You can jump up walls. You can launch while in a vehicle. You can sequence break to the final level of any movie without playing any previous levels. You can soft lock your game by pressing A on the loading screen back into the menu. You can transfer studs between files. And of course, you can do this. Not gonna even bother trying to explain it. Stud multipliers, while present in nearly every game, function a little differently in LEGO Indy 2, as it is the only game with a ×3 multiplier, making the total multiplier this number instead of the regular this number. Can you tell I'm recording this before I got the footage? Not the most exciting entry, but I still thought I should mention it. We'll talk about the handheld ports a little later down the line, but here, I want to focus on the slight variations between the different console versions of the game. Like how on the Wii you can build, dig, and fix faster if you shake the controller. There's also slight differences in the level geometry, such as in 1-5, where the Wii version can walk behind the fence and out of bounds in Room 2, which is blocked off on the PC and Xbox release. It's small things like these that are really hard to notice unless you've played both versions back to back. From a speedrunning perspective, there's also unique glitches, like this item duplication one that only works on the Wii. While this entry pertains to nearly every LEGO game, I put it on this iceberg in specific because I remember it happening to me first in LEGO Indy 1. If you find a minikit that's collected by completing a certain task X amount of times, and complete those tasks in a different order on a second playthrough of the level, you'll collect a duplicate minikit, allowing you to get 11 out of 10 minikits instead of just the normal 10. The easiest way to test this for yourself is the snowmen in Into the Mountains. Something you may not have noticed in the PC port of LEGO Indiana Jones 2 is that there are 0 character sound effects, none of your standard grunts or deaths. There is a mod that restores the voice effects, but outside of the cutscenes, there is no way to hear them on the normal vanilla PC game. Thanks to TT and 1010 Games' own John Burton, we've learned that Indiana Jones wasn't the first adaptational choice after the success of LEGO Star Wars. Not only is there the infamous cancelled James Bond game that didn't make it past a single teaser, but also a planned Tomb Raider Indiana Jones collaboration game. This was immediately shot down by Lucasfilm though, as they viewed Lara Croft as a direct ripoff of Indiana Jones, and wouldn't approve the product. As we all know, a LEGO Indiana Jones game eventually hit the shelves, but with no Lara Croft in sight. There's a bonus level in LEGO Indiana Jones 1 called Warehouse, taking place in the warehouse where the Ark is stored at the end of Raiders. The goal is to collect 1 million studs by doing various different random tasks around the facility. However, there's some stuff present here that isn't found in the base game, like these colored motorbikes for example, that are present inside of LEGO Indiana Jones 2. It's likely that this was shoehorned into the game as a little developer testing grounds, and used to fill the third and final bonus level slot. It's worth noting that the opening level of LEGO Indy 2 takes place in this same warehouse. Maybe this was a precursor to the level creator, who knows? In LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, the direct predecessor to LEGO Indy 1, you can watch a trailer that teases the game, but it was long thought that there was more to this. Thanks to the many talented modders inside the LEGO scene, a demo for Indiana Jones' The Lost Temple was found and restored to a mostly playable state inside of The Complete Saga. First discovered inside the prototype of the Wii version of the game, it's a very toned down version of what we ended up getting in 2008. The camera angle is way different, there's enemies at random locations, extra Jovito heads, a pink cup is used instead of studs for the pressure plate, and we could even see that the gate in the previous hallway also had a different design. The biggest difference has to be the lake room though. The raft is swapped out for a bunch of platforms and ropes. There is an early draft of the raft floating around in the water, and while it is drivable, it's completely unanimated. There were a few scrapped characters that came along with the level, including Jock, Barranca, and a Jovito, but I'm not sure if these were meant to exist as actors within the level or function as real unlocks. It's really interesting to me that the level functions so close to the final version. The mechanic of picking up objects like the bridge wasn't a thing yet, so seeing it here in any form is really neat. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but I put it so low down on the list because of how scarce the crossovers are. In fact, the only one that I can think of is this billboard or poster or whatever in You Can Bank on Batman that is a clear homage to Indy's outfit. If you really want to stretch this entry, the code for LEGO Batman 1 references LIJ's item system in a few places, but that's it. In a side room inside of City of Danger, there's a photorealistic picture of a dog on a wooden post. This is George Lucas's dog Indiana, who the character of Indiana Jones was named after. When LEGO Indiana Jones 2 came out, it was panned by critics for not including any sort of online play. Being released on the PS3 and 360, it seemed like a no-brainer. Eventually, LucasArts revealed they were working on a patch that would bring online co-op to the game. The major issue with this announcement, though, was the lack of map sharing. Sure, you could join your friend's game and play along with them in the levels they had made, but you couldn't upload your own levels for others to play. At least it seems. Documentation on this game and this specific feature is pretty scarce. Eventually, the online co-op was added into the game, but by the point of its release, many players had already lost interest. The Super Stories were a feature in LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, where you're tasked with playing through all of the game's episodes on a strict 1-hour timer, with the goal of collecting 100,000 studs as well. This did not return for LEGO Indiana Jones 1 or Batman 1. However, modders found some references to it in the code, and restored the feature of both. Both of these games are leagues shorter than TCS, making the timer almost a non-issue. Obviously, some things get cut during development, and characters are no different. We have a lot to go over, so let's just get into it. For LEGO Indiana Jones 1, we have Enemy Guard Motorbike, Enemy Officer Nepal, Enemy Officer Subpen, Thuggy Slave Driver Chief, my boy Omar, Maharaja Thuggy, Mechanic, Indiana Jones Arc Outro, Marion Arc Outro, Sala, Donovan Boss, Donovan Skeleton, Colonel Vogel Canyon, Enemy Guard LC, Enemy Goon Cairo, BOTCS, Army Intel Man A and Army Intel Man B, Librarian, and Mummy. For LEGO Indiana Jones 2, we have 72 different entries to cover, so I'm going to take a deep breath and we're going to go through it in one take. The Sherpa Nepal Gunner, Desert Monkey Man, Enemy Goon Cairo, Barranca, Jungle Guide, First Mate, Balak Jungle, Balak Desert, Indiana Jones Arc Outro, Marion Arc Outro, Sherpa Brawler Backpack, Desert Digger, My Boy Omar, Enemy Guard Nepal, Enemy Officer Nepal, Enemy Guard, Enemy Officer Subpen, Army Intel Man A, Army Intel Man B, Maharaja Thuggy, Party Guests, Pankot Guard, Thuggy Slave Driver Chief, Chatterlal, Chatterlal Thuggy, British Troop, British Officer, Khao Khan, Chusin, Wuhan, Punjabi Dignitary, Slave Child, Woolly Pajamas, Shanghai Hoodlum B, Thuggy Slave Driver, Dancing Girl B, Indiana Jones Professor, Dr. Schneider Officer, Dr. Schneider Desert, Enemy Officer, Enemy Comms, Enemy Butler, Enemy Guard Motorbike, Enemy Soldier Sniper, Kazim Venice, Kazim Desert, Bo TCS again, Colonel Vogel Canyon, Donovan, Donovan Castle Brunwald, Donovan Skeleton, Mechanic Young Indy, Fat Boy Scout, Grave Robber A, Grave Robber B, Fedora Mac Holiday, MP Guard Digger, Russian Suit B, Russian Suit C, Ice Cream Man Chief, Smith Scientist, Milkman Mannequin, Businessman Mannequin, Javchenko Disguise, and Mayan King B. This game could have definitely used more character variety throughout the hubs, so a lot of these being scrapped is pretty sad. A lot of them are also alternate costumes, I'm realizing too, but I guess that makes sense for how the character roster works in LEGO Indiana Jones 2. I am out of breath. I'm no expert on the handheld LEGO games at all, but thanks to the monthly recaps I do over on the LEGO Speedrunning YouTube channel, I get a taste of just how crazy broken LEGO Indiana Jones 1 is on the DS. How broken, you might ask? Well, you're able to beat the entire game by only playing 3 levels, even skipping the first. This is done by using a 0 HP glitch to float and clip inside the college, then move around out of bounds to hit the distinct level triggers. It's such an interesting run, and to avoid making this video 4,000 minutes longer, I'll leave a link to the world record run down below so you can witness the spectacle. After a game is released, TT Games will hand out a developer brick to a team that worked on the game, usually as kind of a commemoration, and LEGO Indy was no different. The weird thing here is that instead of using Indy's iconic torso piece, they opt to use Balak's instead. It's likely that this was used before the jacketless figure print was released, and this was the closest thing to it. There's nothing inherently weird about the Sala minifigure piece, but for some reason, the face print on the head has some really weird properties. When you enter the level Map Room Mystery in LEGO Indiana Jones 2, you shouldn't skip the cutscene, because during a random cut to Indy and Sala, his face can be seen printed on a rock in the background. I have no idea why this happened, and it is the only instance of anything like this happening in either game. While some indie games develop their own stories like Staff of Kings or The Infernal Machine, the LEGO games only cover the first 4 movies, which leaves out the somewhat underappreciated young indie TV show. It isn't entirely absent here though, as a few of the songs in the LEGO game soundtrack are sourced directly from the show. The iconic opening to The Hunt for Sir Richard, my favorite song in the game, isn't from The Last Crusade, but an episode of the show where Indiana travels to, well, Venice.
Venice.
A really neat detail that shows the true passion the developers had for the game. The track is titled Venice Fortune Teller, and is one of the most nostalgic things I've ever heard. I'd play it for you here, but I don't want to get copyright struck, so check out the link in the description instead. In the same vein as cut characters, there will occasionally be leftover rooms or areas that were just never utilized in the main game. While I couldn't find much on LIJ 2, just a few odd builder themes, there's reference to a potential third room in LEGO Indy 1's The Temple of Kali in areas.txt, which could have added some much needed length to such a short level. A few more have resurfaced over the years, like a testing for Shanghai Showdown, an alternate take on Room 2, and a missing room in Opening the Ark. There's also plenty of unused beta cutscenes left over too, such as this early draft for Into the Mountains using Sotipo as a placeholder model, or this one in Well of Souls that looks very, very strange. Now we're at the final layer, and unlike the other iceberg I made which covered all 26 mainline TT games and more, this one only covers 2, so finding unknown details was a lot more difficult than you may think, but I believe I've strung together 4 big ones that either remain a mystery to this day or that not many people know about, beginning with LEGO Indiana Jones 2's mysterious green platform. If you go into the hub for the Crystal Skull Part 3 and head over to the far left side of the map, you'll see a green blinking octagonal platform. This platform has no apparent uses. You can't interact with it, you can't park any vehicles on it, and nothing happens if you stand on it. You can try and fly the UFO over it, but again, it does nothing. Hell, at one point I even tried getting Mutt abducted, but to no avail. It's just here and it doesn't do anything. The most likely explanation was that during development, there was some sort of UFO puzzle, like a sky race or even an entrance to a bonus level. It's the same shape and size as the saucer, and this is the only movie hub to feature one. Maybe this bonus level was changed or the race was scrapped, and the platform just remained in the game to stump a whole new generation of players every few years. You can get out of bounds in LEGO Indy 1 fairly easily. You can do an alt-tab clip, you can fall beneath a transition zone, or even push yourself out with a box. There's methods for almost every room and every level. Outside of just being out of bounds, there's another common thread that links everything together: a gray cube. This thing is found everywhere, and if you look hard enough, you'll find it. Even the bonus levels like Ancient City have a weird gray cube off in the distance. So what is it? Well, this gray cube is a placeholder for objects that don't load into the world properly. When selecting a level, those specific assets are what the game chooses to load in. If we mod the game to take us from 1.1 to 1.3 for instance, a lot of the assets will show up as this placeholder gray cube, because the game didn't take the time to load in 1.3's assets. In fact, the game will have a hard time loading in 1.3 at all as a result of the asset change. It's why creating a LEGO Indy room randomizer, like what we did for the complete saga, is next to impossible. Getting around this asset block is really, really puzzling. Henry is an idiot. Not because of anything he does in the movies or the game, but because of one small printing mistake. This is the box art for LEGO Indiana Jones 2. It's beautiful and probably one of my favorite LEGO game box arts of all time. But take a look at Indy's dad, Henry, and what do you notice? He's looking at the wrong side of the map, like a dumbass. The final entry for this video refers to one of my favorite restored features in all of LEGO Indiana Jones. A YouTuber slash hacker slash modder who goes by the name Proboscis has created an insane amount of LEGO Indiana Jones content, usually revolving around cut content he's re-implemented into the game. A few months ago, I was going down the rabbit hole of all 3 of his channels, and stumbled across a video that claimed to restore a Harry Potter and Batman mode in LEGO Indiana Jones 2, which really caught my eye. LEGO Indiana Jones 2 released in between Batman 1 and Harry Potter 1 through 4, and by injecting a code into the Wii version of the game, Proboscis was able to activate features that are normally not in the game. For example, when Harry Potter mode is active, you can't shoot while you're on the ground, you have to jump to shoot. The character portraits are also animated, a feature originally created for LEGO Harry Potter years 1 through 4, and building is disabled, since the game replaces that functionality with spells, which no Indy character has. Some objects just automatically build themselves as a result. I highly recommend checking out Proboscis' 3 channels down below, as there's a lot of weird stuff like this for many, many games. I know a lot of you are really big fans of the crossover mods, so it's really cool that this is a feature that's just hidden away inside the game, at least to my understanding. Proboscis has a lot of videos just like this one and potentially even weirder, so I'll leave a link to his channel down below, along with other footage I've used from creators like Laterni or Barrio, who were all super helpful when drafting up this video. And that is almost the complete LEGO Indiana Jones Iceberg. I really tried my best to pull out entries that a lot of you wouldn't know or would be surprised by, but I definitely missed some glaring things. So again, leave your suggestions for trivia in the comments down below, and I might make a follow-up video in the future. No promises. But notice that I said almost, because I put a hidden entry on this image, and it's up for you guys to find it. If enough people figure it out, I'll leave an explanation in the pinned comment down below. A higher resolution version of the image can be found in my Discord or my community post from last week. Thank you for watching, and happy hunting.